I apologize for the confusion with these projections. We made a mistake bringing her on. The video froze on my manager's face as he said those words. His expression didn't match his tone. A subtle smirk pulled at the corner of his mouth while his voice feigned regret. The 12 people in the virtual meeting sat in uncomfortable silence. I couldn't breathe. My presentation, 6 weeks of work analyzing global market expansion opportunities for TechPoint, our biggest client, hung unfinished on the shared screen. The growth strategy I'd meticulously crafted was now tainted by those 11 words. "Could you clarify what you mean by that, Porter?" asked Gia, TechPoint's chief strategy officer. Porter cleared his throat. "What I mean is that Adeline's approach is unconventional. Her projections deviate significantly from industry standards. I should have reviewed them more thoroughly before this meeting." My face burned hot. I wanted to disappear, to shut my laptop and run, but I remained frozen, watching my professional reputation dissolve in real time. "I see," Gia replied, her tone neutral but her eyes revealing confusion. "Perhaps we should reschedule?" "That won't be necessary," Porter jumped in. "I've prepared alternative projections that align with what we discussed previously." He shared his screen, revealing a completely different strategy, one I'd never seen before. As he walked through slides that bore my name but contained none of my ideas, I felt something break inside me. This wasn't the first time. For 6 months, Porter had been systematically altering my work, presenting watered-down versions to clients, then blaming me when they underperformed. But he'd never before thrown me under the bus so publicly, so ruthlessly. The meeting ended with awkward goodbyes. I disconnected without saying a word, then sat motionless in my home office, staring at the now black screen. My phone pinged with a message from Layla, my closest colleague. "That was brutal. You okay?" I wasn't. Not remotely. In my email, drafts folder sat a message I'd been saving for 6 months. Irrefutable proof of Porter's sabotage. My cursor hovered over it. One click, and everything would change. I pushed back from my desk instead. "Not yet." "Hey, if you're finding this story resonates with you or brings back memories of workplace betrayal, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that explore the complex world of professional relationships. Drop a comment about your own workplace experiences. Has anyone ever tried to undermine you? My name is Adeline. Until 6 months ago, I was known as a rising star in business strategy consulting. My previous employer had dubbed me the growth architect after I helped transform their regional operation into an international powerhouse in just 18 months. My methods weren't conventional. I believed in cultural immersion over market statistics and human psychology over spreadsheet projections. The job offer from Brunswick Partners came with glowing promises. "We need fresh thinking," the recruiter had said. "Your unorthodox approach is exactly what we're looking for." Porter Daniels, who would become my manager, had welcomed me warmly during my first week. "Your reputation precedes you," he'd said, his handshake firm. "I've been in this business 22 years, and I still believe we can learn something new every day." I should have noticed the warning signs, the way he emphasized his experience in every conversation, how he'd introduce me to clients as our newest talent, rather than highlighting my accomplishments. The slight revision he'd suggest to every document I produced. "Just a bit of refinement," he'd say. "The clients here have specific expectations." The first major red flag appeared during my 2nd month. I developed an entry strategy for a tech firm looking to expand into Southeast Asia. My approach centered on partnerships with local businesses rather than direct market entry. A slower start, but with higher long-term potential and significantly lower risk. When I received the final presentation Porter had delivered to the client, I barely recognized it. He'd kept my name and title page, but replaced my strategy with a conventional market penetration plan that contradicted everything I'd recommended. "The client loved it," he told me afterward. "They've approved the entire proposal." 3 months later, that client was struggling with regulatory issues I'd specifically designed my original strategy to avoid. "This is disappointing," Porter had said during our team meeting, pulling up my name on the strategy document. Adeline's approach didn't account for the regulatory complexities. I'd tried to defend myself. "That's not what I recommended. My original, let's focus on solutions, not excuses," he'd interrupted. "I'll work with you to revise the approach." This pattern repeated with 5 different clients. My innovative strategies would be replaced with conventional approaches bearing my name. When they succeeded, Porter would take credit for guiding me. When they failed, the blame fell squarely on my shoulders. I began documenting everything. I saved original versions of my work. I recorded meetings when legally permitted. I started creating two versions of every strategy, the one I submitted to Porter and the one I truly believed would succeed. The revelation came at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. I'd stayed late at the office, trying to salvage a project that had gone sideways after Porter's refinements. While searching for a document in the shared drive, I found a misplaced file, an email thread that had been saved as a PDF. The message was from Trisha, our financial controller. These altered projections violate industry standards. Changing her work while keeping her signature creates serious liability. Porter's response chilled me. She's too new to question me. Just keep her name on everything. If anything goes wrong, we have our scapegoat. I forwarded the file to my personal email, then deleted all traces of my access from the system. That night, I barely slept, wrestling with what to do. The next morning, Porter called me into his office. "The Henderson account is struggling," he said, sliding a folder across his desk. "Your approach isn't working." I opened the folder to find yet another strategy I hadn't created, bearing my name. "This isn't my work," I said quietly. "Your name's on it," he replied, leaning back in his chair. "Are you saying you don't stand behind your own recommendations?" "I'm saying these aren't my recommendations. You changed everything." His expression hardened. "That's a serious accusation, Adeline. Do you have proof?" I didn't answer. We both knew I couldn't prove every instance of his manipulation. "This attitude isn't helping your position here," he continued. "The team has concerns about your performance. Clients are questioning your capabilities." The words stung because they were partly true. Colleagues had started avoiding me. Clients did seem skeptical during meetings. Porter had successfully isolated me, making me doubt my own abilities. For weeks after, I tried working within the system. I scheduled meetings with human resources, carefully framing my concerns as miscommunications rather than deliberate sabotage. Each time, Porter would arrive unexpectedly, speaking over me with practiced concern about my adjustment difficulties and performance issues. Which brings me back to that fateful client call with TechPoint. 6 months of calculated undermining culminated in that public execution of my professional reputation. As I sat staring at my laptop that evening, the saved email from Trisha to Porter opened before me. A strange calm settled over me. The cursor blinked in the forward field, waiting. My phone rang. It was Layla. "Adeline, everyone's talking about what happened. Porter's already emailing the team about regrettable personnel decisions coming this week." My hands stopped trembling. "He's planning to fire me?" "I think so. He's meeting with HR tomorrow morning." I thanked her and hung up. The decision crystallized. I added the email addresses of our executive team and today's client to the recipient list. My finger hovered over the send button. Once I pressed it, there would be no going back. Everything I'd worked for might crumble. Or maybe, just maybe, I closed my eyes and clicked forward. The response came faster than I expected. It was 3:17 a.m. when my phone lit up with an email notification. I hadn't slept, alternating between panic and a strange detachment as I wondered if I'd just destroyed my career. The subject line read, "Emergency Executive Meeting, 8 a.m. today." The message was brief. "Adeline, your presence is required. Conference Room A. This matter requires immediate attention." It was signed by Nadine, our Chief Operating Officer, a woman I'd met exactly twice in my 6 months at Brunswick Partners. My stomach tightened. This was it. I'd be fired, possibly sued, definitely blacklisted. I'd never work in this industry again. Porter had connections everywhere. What had I been thinking? I spent the next 4 hours in a daze, showering mechanically, selecting my most professional outfit, a navy pantsuit I'd worn to my interview. If I was going down, I'd at least look dignified. The office was eerily quiet when I arrived at 7:45. The normal morning bustle was absent. I walked to Conference Room A, my footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Through the glass walls, I could see 5 people already seated. Nadine, Victor, the CEO, 2 board members whose names I couldn't recall, and Trisha, the financial controller whose email I'd forwarded. Porter was noticeably absent. Nadine motioned for me to enter. As I pushed open the door, their conversation halted. "Adeline," Victor said, his expression unreadable. "Please, join us." I sat in the only empty chair, hands folded in my lap to hide their trembling. "How are you this morning?" Victor asked, his tone surprisingly gentle. "I'm present," I replied honestly. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Fair enough. Do you know why we've called this meeting?" "I assume it's about the email I forwarded last night." Victor nodded. then slid a stack of papers across the table. We've been busy since your message. These are copies of your original strategy documents alongside the versions presented to clients. I glanced down at the papers, seeing my work side by side with Porter's alterations. 6 months of sabotage laid bare. How long has this been happening? Nadine asked. Since my 2nd month here, I answered. And you've been allowing Porter to reshape your work? Then blame you when his changes failed? I nodded, throat tight. Victor leaned forward. Why didn't you come to us sooner? The question hit me hard. Why hadn't I? I tried going to HR. Porter always somehow knew and would show up during the meetings. I was told it was a communication issue between us. Nadine exchanged glances with Victor. HR reports directly to Porter, she said. Any complaint you filed would go straight to him. That explained so much. I felt sick. Last night, I said carefully, after the TechPoint call, I learned Porter was planning to terminate me this week. That's when I decided to forward the email. That call, Victor said, shaking his head. Several people contacted me about it afterward. It was concerning, but it also triggered something we've been investigating for weeks. Trisha spoke up for the first time. Financial has noticed discrepancies in client performance projections versus actual results. The patterns didn't make sense until now. TechPoint called me directly last night. Victor continued. Gia forwarded your email to their entire leadership team. They've sent us every presentation they've received in the past 6 months. He tapped the stack of papers. The manipulation pattern is clear. 3 additional clients have already reached out this morning, asking for reviews of their strategies. The room fell silent as I processed this information. They weren't firing me. They were listening to me. Where is Porter now? I finally asked. That's not your concern at the moment, Nadine replied, her tone businesslike but not unkind. What we need from you is a complete account of what's happened these past 6 months. For the next 2 hours, I walked them through everything. Every altered document, every undermined strategy, every public humiliation. Trisha took notes while occasionally corroborating my story with financial records showing the impact of Porter's changes. At 10:32 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Layla. Porter just left with security. What's happening? I didn't respond. I couldn't. Not yet. As our meeting concluded, Victor remained seated while the others filed out. Adeline, I owe you an apology, he said once we were alone. We pride ourselves on building an organization where talent thrives. We failed you. I didn't know how to respond to that. We'd like you to take the rest of the week off, paid. When you return Monday, we want to discuss a new position for you. What position? I asked, cautious. Leading the strategy division, implementing your authentic vision. If you're interested, my mind reeled. I need to think about it. He nodded. I understand. Trust is earned. We have work to do there. As I gathered my things to leave, Nadine reappeared at the door. One more thing, she said. TechPoint has requested another meeting. With you specifically. No other Brunswick representatives. TechPoint has requested another meeting. The fear must have shown on my face because she quickly added, It's not what you think. They were impressed with what they saw in your original strategies. I believe the phrase Gia used was, finally seeing the real talent. I left the office in a daze, walking aimlessly for nearly an hour before finding myself at a small park. Sitting on a bench, I finally checked my phone. 27 missed calls, 43 text messages, most from colleagues wondering what earthquake had hit Brunswick partners. Layla had sent the most, call me now, followed by increasingly desperate pleas for information. I dialed her number. Adeline, she practically shouted. What in the world is happening? Porter's gone, HR is interviewing everyone, and there are rumors you're either fired or getting promoted. It's complicated, I said, suddenly exhausted. What are people saying about me? Everyone's confused. Some think you discovered financial fraud. Others think you and Porter had an affair that went bad. I couldn't help laughing, though it came out sounding broken. Definitely not that. The weirdest part, Layla continued, lowering her voice, is that clients are calling, asking for you specifically. TechPoint's Gia practically demanded to speak with you. I know, I said. I have a meeting with them next week. Adeline, what did you do? I closed my eyes, feeling the warm sun on my face. I stood up for myself. Finally, that evening, alone in my apartment, I allowed myself to feel everything I'd been suppressing for months. The humiliation, the self-doubt, the rage. I cried until my throat hurt, until the weight that had been crushing me began to lift slightly. My phone rang at 9:13 p.m., unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. You think you've won. Porter's voice was low, dangerous. I should have hung up. Instead, I asked, how did you get my number? You really believe they're going to hand you my job? You're nothing but a convenient solution to their PR problem. Goodbye, Porter. I built that division, he hissed. 22 years in this industry. You think anyone will hire you after I'm done talking? I ended the call, blocked the number, then sat shaking on my couch. His voice had transported me right back to every degrading interaction, every moment of doubt. My phone buzzed with a text from another unknown number. This isn't over. I turned off my phone completely. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and cautious hope. I alternated between fearing Porter's threats and allowing myself to imagine a future where my work would be respected. By Sunday night, I'd made my decision. Monday morning, I arrived at Brunswick Partners to find the office atmosphere completely transformed. People who had previously avoided eye contact now smiled warmly. Those who had excluded me from meetings suddenly wanted my input. The hypocrisy was jarring. Nadine met me at reception. Ready for your meeting with TechPoint? Now. I hadn't expected it first thing. They insisted. Conference room B. I'll walk you there. As we walked, Nadine briefed me. They've reviewed all your original strategies. They were. Impressed is an understatement, particularly with your Asian market approach. The one Porter completely rewrote. Yes, the one that's currently failing spectacularly. We reached the conference room where Gia and two other TechPoint executives waited. No Brunswick representatives joined us. Gia stood as I entered. Adeline, thank you for meeting with us. I shook her hand, noticing a new respect in her eyes. Something felt wrong during our last call, she said once we were seated. Your ideas were always innovative, but somehow the execution never aligned. Now we understand why. One of her colleagues, an older man I recognized as their CFO, spoke up. We've compared your original strategies with what was implemented. The discrepancies are significant. We'd like you to walk us through your actual vision, Gia continued. The real strategy, not Porter's version. For the next 2 hours, I presented my authentic approach to their global expansion, my emphasis on cultural integration, my unconventional market entry strategies, my long-term growth projections. They asked challenging questions, but not in the dismissive way Porter had. They engaged, debated, considered. As our meeting concluded, Gia handed me a folder. This is a revised contract. We're doubling our engagement with Brunswick Partners, contingent upon you leading our account personally. I stared at the folder, speechless. We value innovation, Adeline. Real innovation, not repackaged conventional wisdom. We believe you can deliver that. Walking back to my new office, Porter's former space, I felt strangely hollow. This should have been a triumph. So why did it feel incomplete? Nadine was waiting for me. How did it go? I handed her the folder. They're doubling their contract. Her eyebrows shot up as she reviewed the terms. This is extraordinary. Contingent upon me leading their account, I added. Of course. She closed the folder. Victor wants to meet with you at 2 to discuss your new role officially. I assume you're accepting? I hesitated, remembering Porter's threat. This isn't over. Is there a problem? Nadine asked, noticing my hesitation. Porter contacted me over the weekend. He made threats. Her expression hardened. That won't be an issue moving forward. Trust me. Something in her tone made me believe her. As words spread about my promotion and TechPoint's expanded contract, my inbox filled with congratulatory messages from colleagues who had previously ignored me. Client requests poured in. The same people who had excluded me now sought my approval. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt hollow. Porter was gone, but the system that had protected him remained. The colleagues who had witnessed my humiliation and said nothing were now treating me like a rising star. Victory wasn't removing Porter. It wouldn't be complete until I changed the very culture that had allowed him to thrive. As I sat in my new office, his old office, staring at the view he had enjoyed while systematically destroying my confidence, I realized the real work was just beginning. My revenge wouldn't be complete until Brunswick Partners became unrecognizable to people like Porter, and I now had the position to make that happen. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You think this is the end? Wait until next week. I didn't block this one. Instead, I saved it. Evidence. Because Porter had taught me one valuable lesson. Always keep receipts. The first month in my new role passed in a whirlwind. I implemented rapid changes to our strategy division. First, by insisting all client materials be reviewed by multiple team members before presentation. No more solo alterations. Porter's threatening texts continued sporadically, always from different numbers, always vague enough to maintain deniability, specific enough to unsettle me. Enjoy it while it lasts. Your clients will see through you eventually. Nobody respects an opportunist. I saved each one without responding, my collection of evidence growing alongside my determination. My leadership style quickly diverged from Porter's. Where he had fostered competition and secrecy, I built transparency and collaboration. I initiated weekly roundtables where team members shared challenges openly. I required all strategy documents to clearly credit every contributor. Some veterans of Porter's regime struggled with the changes. "This is inefficient," complained Drew, a senior strategist who'd been Porter's right hand. "Clients want clear direction, not committee decisions." "Clients want effective strategies," I countered. "And that comes from diverse perspectives, not a single voice." Drew resigned 3 weeks later. 2 others followed. I didn't stop them. What surprised me was the talent that emerged in their absence. Junior strategists who'd been silenced under Porter's leadership now flourished. Layla, who'd shown loyalty when everyone else turned away, became my unofficial deputy. "The energy is completely different," she told me over lunch 6 weeks into my tenure. "People actually want to come to work now." Yet, despite the positive changes, something nagged at me. The texts from Porter had stopped 2 weeks ago. The silence felt more threatening than the messages. "Has anyone heard from Porter?" I asked Layla. "Rumor is he's interviewing at Westward Consulting. They're our biggest competitor in the financial sector." The information sent a chill through me. Westward handled 3 clients we were actively courting. If Porter landed there, he could potentially undermine everything we were building. That afternoon, Nadine stopped by my office. "How are you settling in?" "Well, I think. The team's responding positively to the new structure." She nodded. "Client feedback has been excellent. TechPoint is particularly impressed with the Asian market corrections." "And the board? Are they satisfied with the transition?" "More than satisfied," she said. "But that's not why I'm here. We received something concerning this morning." She placed a folder on my desk. Inside was a letter from a law firm representing Porter. It alleged wrongful termination, defamation, and theft of intellectual property, claiming I had stolen his strategies and presented them as my own. "This is absurd," I said, my voice tight. "We have documentation proving exactly the opposite." "We know. Legal is preparing our response, but I wanted you to be aware." After she left, I sat motionless, staring at the letter. Even removed from the company, Porter was still attempting to sabotage me. The lawsuit was baseless. Our documentation was irrefutable, but the emotional toll was real. The anxiety I thought I'd left behind came rushing back. That evening, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. "You should know what he's planning." Attached was a screenshot of a conversation between Porter and someone at Westward Consulting, discussing how they could poach Brunswick's clients by exposing strategy inconsistencies and leadership instability. I immediately forwarded it to Nadine and Victor, adding, "Source unknown, but concerning if authentic." Victor's response came within minutes. "Meeting tomorrow, 7 a.m. Bring everything you have on Porter's communications since his departure." I slept little that night, organizing my evidence, the threatening texts, the lawsuit details, the mysterious email. By morning, I felt simultaneously exhausted and wired. Victor and Nadine were already in the conference room when I arrived, along with someone I didn't recognize, a serious woman in a charcoal suit. "Adeline, this is Margot from Corporate Security," Victor introduced us. "She has some information you need to hear." Margot didn't waste time with pleasantries. "We've confirmed Porter has accepted a position at Westward Consulting, starting next Monday. We've also verified he's been in contact with 4 of our major clients, including TechPoint." My stomach dropped. "What's he telling them?" "That Brunswick is unstable. That your promotion was damage control, not merit-based. That your strategies lack substance without his refinement." I felt sick. "Are the clients believing him?" "TechPoint immediately reported his contact to us," Nadine said. "They're firmly in your corner. 2 others have expressed concerns, but are waiting to see proof of his claims. The 4th hasn't responded to our inquiries." "Which is Macklin Industries," Margot added. "Your presentation to them is scheduled for tomorrow." Macklin was our newest client, a manufacturing giant looking to modernize their supply chain. The presentation was my first completely solo project in my new role. If they pulled out based on Porter's interference, it would validate his claims and potentially trigger a client exodus. "What do we do?" I asked. Victor leaned forward. We considered postponing your presentation, having someone else deliver it, or bringing in reinforcements. But, I prompted, hearing the hesitation in his voice. But this is your strategy, your vision, and we believe in it. His eyes held mine. The question is, do you? It was a test, not of my abilities, but of my resilience. Could I stand firm in the face of Porter's continued sabotage? I do, I said, finding my voice. But I want complete transparency with Macklin about what's happening. No more secrets. That's how Porter operated, not me. Victor nodded. Agreed. Now, tell us about these communications you've received. I shared everything. The threatening texts, the mysterious email. As I spoke, Margot took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. The texts come from burner phones, she said when I finished. Untraceable. But the email is interesting. The account was created yesterday and accessed from a public library network. Someone inside Westward trying to warn us? Nadine suggested. Possibly. Or someone who wants us to think that. Margot closed her notebook. Either way, we now have evidence Porter is actively attempting to interfere with Brunswick's business relationships, which violates his separation agreement, Victor added. Legal will handle that aspect. Your job, Adeline, is to deliver tomorrow's presentation exactly as planned. The next morning, I arrived at Macklin Industries an hour early, reviewing my materials in their reception area. My presentation covered their supply chain modernization, but with an unexpected focus on worker experience, rather than just automation efficiency. 10 minutes before our scheduled start, the receptionist approached me. Miss Adeline, Mr. Holt would like to speak with you privately before the presentation. Jerome Holt was Macklin's CEO. He hadn't been scheduled to attend. My anxiety spiked as I followed the receptionist to a small conference room where Holt waited alone. He was older than I expected, with silver hair and sharp eyes that evaluated me as I entered. Thank you for coming early, he said, gesturing to a chair. I received an interesting call yesterday from a man named Porter Daniels. I kept my expression neutral. What did he tell you? That Brunswick is in disarray, that you're unqualified for your position, that hiring you would be a costly mistake. Holt watched me carefully. He offered Westward services at a significant discount. I took a deep breath. And what was your response? I told him I prefer to make judgments based on my own observations. He leaned forward. But I am curious why a former employee would go to such lengths to undermine you. This was my moment of truth. I could downplay the situation, pretend it was a simple case of professional jealousy, or I could be transparent, as I'd promised Victor. Mr. Holt, before we begin the formal presentation, I'd like to share something with you. I met his gaze directly. For 6 months, Porter systematically altered my work, presented watered-down versions to clients, then blamed me when they underperformed. His eyebrows rose slightly, but he didn't interrupt. When I exposed his actions with documented evidence, Brunswick removed him and promoted me. He's now attempting to damage my reputation and poach clients for his new position at Westward. I placed my presentation materials on the table. I understand if this makes you uncomfortable proceeding with Brunswick, but I believe in complete transparency with clients. No hidden agendas, no manipulated strategies. Holt was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, a small, appreciative expression. That's the most honest business conversation I've had in years. He stood, extending his hand. Let's proceed with your presentation. I've asked our entire executive team to join. The presentation went better than I could have hoped. My approach resonated with Macklin's leadership, particularly my emphasis on how worker experience directly impacts supply chain efficiency. By session's end, they'd not only approved my strategy but expanded our contract to include implementation support. As I packed up my materials, Holt approached me again. Porter called me this morning, he said casually. Wanted to know if I'd come to my senses about Brunswick. My hands stilled. What did you tell him? That I just doubled our engagement. Holt's expression was satisfied, and that if he contacted me again, I'd be filing a harassment complaint. I returned to Brunswick triumphant but wary. Porter's attempts had failed with Macklin, but he wouldn't stop there. The lawsuit still loomed, and we had no idea which clients he might target next. The following Monday morning, I arrived at the office to find Nadine waiting at my door, her expression unreadable. There's been a development, she said. Westward Consulting rescinded Porter's job offer yesterday. I stared at her. Why? Apparently, he misrepresented his departure from Brunswick. When they learned the truth, she shrugged. No reputable firm wants to risk their client relationships. How did they learn the truth? Nadine smiled slightly. That email you received? We traced it to a former assistant of Porter's, who now works at Westward. When we contacted her, she revealed Porter had asked her to help gather intelligence on Brunswick clients. She refused, and instead warned us. And warned Westward as well, I'm guessing. Precisely. She provided them with the same documentation we had, the altered strategies, the emails, everything. Relief washed through me. And the lawsuit? Withdrawn this morning. His attorney advised him that proceeding would only damage his reputation further. It was over. Porter had tried to destroy me twice, first from within Brunswick, then from outside. Both attempts had failed. That afternoon, I received one final text from an unknown number. You won't last. They'll see through you eventually. Instead of saving it as evidence, I finally responded. They already see me clearly. That's why you lost. Then I blocked the number and deleted all the previous messages. I didn't need them anymore. 6 months later, Brunswick Partners Strategy Division had its most successful quarter in company history. My team had grown from 12 to 20, with a waiting list of talented strategists eager to join. Our client retention rate stood at 97%, the highest in the industry. The culture I'd built was unrecognizable from Porter's era. Transparency had replaced secrecy. Collaboration had defeated competition. Credit was given where due. My original vision, the one Porter had tried so hard to suppress, was now Brunswick's greatest asset. The sweetest moment came when an industry publication named me one of the top 10 innovators in business strategy. The article specifically highlighted my refreshingly human-centered approach and commitment to authentic collaboration. The day it published, I received an email from Gia at TechPoint. Saw the article, not surprised at all. You were always this good. We just needed to see your real work, not his version of it. I never mentioned I could have exposed Porter months earlier. Perfect revenge, like perfect strategy, requires impeccable timing and patience to see it through. If my story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Have you ever dealt with someone who tried to undermine your success? Share your experience in the comments below. How did you handle it? Remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else. It's about building something they can never take away from you.